Hey, everybody. Welcome to Backline EQ. I'm your host, the F Bomb, and I have a special guest with me today, Lady Skelora. And some of you know her. You've seen her grow up behind the kit, but today's a special day. She's going to be with me doing an interview. So, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit like, subscribe, share with your friends, and follow me so that way you know who's going to be on the next Backline EQ episode. So, anyway, thanks a lot, Lady Skelora, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, some of you may know Lady Skelora as Rage, and others know her as just plain old Ruby. But it doesn't matter because Lady Skelora has her own page on social media everywhere, and we'll get to that later on. But as you know, Lady Skelora has an appearance all her own. So, we'll get to that too. But until then, we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So, the thing that I want to say first is that Lady Scalora started playing drums professionally at age 11 with the family band The Contradiction. And then eventually she moved forward into another band called Fallen Angel. She did that for a couple of years, and then here come the pandemic. And of course, as everybody knows, things kind of, went a little south for a lot of people at that point. So there's been a lot of resetting and reevaluating and things like that. So, but one thing that you do know about Lady Scalora is her aesthetic. And it doesn't matter when you saw her or what band you saw her with, her aesthetic was probably what set her apart from most of the other female drummers out there. So she's a makeup artist, musician, artist of many talents, but most importantly, she's my daughter. So, welcome, Lady Scalora.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. And of course, it wouldn't be the same if I didn't have you on my new program.
Mhm.
So, let's update everybody what's been going on with you since, let's just say, since the pandemic when everything kind of went south for a lot of people.
Well, I guess to start, I knew that maintaining a decent job was probably the biggest thing for me. I honestly went through a period of depression because obviously with COVID happening, it shut down a lot of venues, a lot of major venues that even I played
Hmm.
at. Especially the Empire, that was huge in Akron. I shout out to all the people that ran that
I
place.
really like that
I
place.
really did too. But I hope someday there could be some kind of revival for it.
Sure.
Um, Working uh,
So yeah, so
solely
basically the last time people saw you playing, you were still what, 21, 22? Like I'm trying to think of how.
22, I think.
Yeah, so you were still fairly young since, that happened.
Mhm.
You've been What have you been doing with yourself?
Keeping myself busy, I guess.
Yeah, what are you
It's
doing with yourself professionally right
I'm still working at Great Clips.
now? Yeah.
I'm maintaining my cosmetology license. I'm
Hmm.
looking to go more independent as time goes on. I'm still working out the fine detailing for that.
Hmm.
So we'll start there, but I've also been taking advantage of the kind of income that I am getting just to kind of slowly go back into music. Because
Hmm.
again, it has been hard to get back into it since leaving
Hmm.
Fallen Angel.
Hmm.
I loved spending time with those people, would love to see them again. So
Shout
since
out to
then,
Fallen Angel.
yes. Um, would like to do something like that again eventually in the future.
Hmm.
But since that happened, COVID shutting down and trying to maintain some kind of a stable income, because I was transitioning from early 20s to now late 20s.
Hmm.
And, things change.
Sure.
I now have to pay
Yeah,
insurance.
like you got to be
That's
an
great.
adult. Adulting is so fun, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so fun.
Well, but even though, I remember going to see you and, obviously with you being my daughter, there's a sense of pride that goes along with watching you develop into another group besides the contradiction. I mean, the contradiction kind of had like hard breaks put to it. And then you
Mm,
were able to jump right into Fallen Angel. And what a kind of like a leveling up because
mm,
you started to sing more. You
mm,
began singing backups.
mm,
You had a dedicated sound band to do, your stuff. Whereas
mm.
the contradiction, we were doing all of it ourselves, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for sure. You learned from the ground up, how things go. And so you were able to kind of like develop your voice and kind of get used to the idea that, oh, you have a support system like with Donnie, the sound man, that doesn't come with a band that does everything on their
Mm-hmm.
own. So
Mm-hmm.
what sticks out when you think of those first few gigs when you were first starting out? Now we're talking about age 11, when you were first starting. What sticks out in your mind as far as when you were a young person and doing your first few gigs?
When you say what sticks out, are you talking about what I took away
Yeah,
or
yeah. What did you take away from
well, it is I mean, I was 11
that? Mm-hmm.
and I was a I was still a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So being social was definitely something that I had to acclimate to and learning how to socialize with adults was I guess the biggest takeaway
Mm-hmm.
because it's much different than being around kids my age.
Sure.
It's a lot different and being in settings where these are people that have had a lot of experience versus me being on stage for maybe the first 2 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a little bit about how you carry yourself on stage too.
Sure. Sure.
I guess in another sense too, you kind of see how everybody else in the band operates too.
Mm.
But
Sure.
I've also been an observer too, so
Yeah.
I'm always observant when someone screws up.
Mhm. We'll
Someone
get to
forgets
that
the
later.
lyric. So I guess those are the only things I can really think of right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was little, watching musicians grow up, like on TV, like
Mhm.
when MTV was still kind of a thing,
Mhm.
uh, I loved watching people on the stage and being flashy and they looked like they were genuinely having a good time,
Mhm.
and that's what I wanted. I wanted to have a good time.
Mhm.
Now when I got a little older, when I started performing a bit, did I see myself being huge? No, because let's face it, there's only a small percentage of people that actually make it.
That's true.
And even in today's timeline, where a lot of musicians are starting on the internet,
Mhm.
especially like TikTok, Instagram, other social media platforms, a small percentage of them actually make it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I guess I just go in there nowadays thinking, well, I may not be Hollywood famous, and that's okay. I
Mhm.
don't plan to be there. At the very least, I just care about putting what I want to put out there.
Sure.
And if
Being
any,
in being like sincere to yourself and being true
yes,
to yourself. Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And if people find it entertaining, hey,
Sure.
listen along or look at it.
Mhm. So, what was your thoughts when you would go into playing after so many gigs? There had to be an increase in experience, and after so many gigs there had to be an increase in confidence and so on and so forth. So
But mostly just doing what I really liked. That's mostly what it comes down to.
yeah.
I really enjoyed learning. I really enjoyed getting experience from other people and learning, networking with other people, because that's another huge part of being a
Sure.
local musician,
Mm.
especially being a small musician, is knowing the right people
Hmm.
and seeing how they can kind of help you, whether it is that they help you get the tools you need or just simply tell you like, hey, try this instead.
Sure.
uh, those were some of the major things that I really liked the most. I mean, yes, improving as a drummer is a major thing for me, but I mostly just preferred doing what I really liked to do.
Hmm.
I've always been a performer. I liked putting on a show for people.
Hmm.
And I think it's the reception too. Like when the crowd reception comes back, you just kind of feel that energy.
Sure. Sure.
And kind of building off of that, it's like, okay, that's great, and I think I can keep that, and what can I do to retain that?
Retain. Yeah.
Because we can always play the same songs over and over, but I feel each show can be just slightly customized
Sure.
to each audience, whether you're playing in Cleveland or Akron, Youngstown,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I'm mostly familiar with Northeast Ohio
Right.
cities, but
So, who are some of your drummer influences? Who is it that you really admire?
I really like Bill Ward, Ginger Baker, John Bonham.
Mm.
I He goes by the name Two.
Mm.
He's the drummer for Sleep Token. He
Okay.
does a lot of gospel chops, I guess you would call it, combining R&B into his kind of style of music.
Okay.
Uh, Matt Halpern from the Periphery.
Yeah.
sometimes it's a hard thing to say.
Sure.
I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. I have way too many favorites.
One of the things that I want to share with the audience is the way you connected to counting as a baby, because, you know, the a lot of people know, the joke was that I was going to have a baby that was a drummer because we couldn't find one. We knew that that was, just a joke. But, I went into the hospital and I was having contractions and things, and her father's music that he had written was playing in the background as I'm sweating and grunting and, trying to avoid screaming.
Insert
But,
childbirth.
right.
you
So, sometimes I wonder if music is downloaded into people in instances like that because,
you uploaded it as an MP3 file when you
right.
were giving birth to
And
me.
then I had to like change it to,
You
hey,
told the nurse, like, hey, can you download like 1990s version of iTunes?
right.
Just kind of plug that in there.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was interesting though that, here we were listening to music when you were born, and then literally when you were an infant and you would be crying specifically in the car, I'd just start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and you would stop crying. And then eventually it just got to the point where I could just use my fingers and you would stop. And then during the time that we would be downstairs rehearsing, and in order to get your tempo to stay, then I would use circles to kind of keep you in tempo and right in the pocket. And it seemed like those visuals were the things that really keyed you in. It was pretty interesting. And I don't know if there's other people that have children that are musicians that just kind of drop into something and boom, they figure it out real quick. But that was something with her that once she started playing, it was kind of like, huh, maybe she really was meant to play the drums. So as a young person, and growing up with, musical family and things like that, giving up weekends, there was still a lot of fun involved too. It
Hmm.
was a lot of work though. It wasn't just going out there and playing and getting the opportunity to make a few bucks. I mean, you learned about the whole gamut of it,
Hmm.
getting your stuff together, getting ready. I think still sometimes
It's a challenge.
yeah, as many times as we've done it, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I still forgot my lip balm, or
We
whatever.
always have to have lip
You got to
balm.
have the lip balm. There's always something that, you learn along the way. So
There's always a need for a drum key, for Christ's
always,
sake.
like, you need to have 3 or 4 of them just because you never
Just
know.
you might as well buy a box of them.
Right. Well, that's why that one necklace was so cool. It looked cool. It was a
Yeah,
cute.
it looks cool, but drum keys are like lip balm. You have to have one in your pocket, your purse, your bedroom,
That's
your
true.
bathroom. Might as well put a couple in your car.
Right,
Might as
right.
well put some in your console. Put some in
Yes.
your gig bag, and then maybe, just maybe, have like a little plastic baggie of it and just kind of like hide it somewhere discreet,
Right.
like in there. And someone's like,
Or just write
"Oh
down
yeah,
your shirt. You can just
just
have it
write
right
down the
down.
shirt."
Right. So I know that you have been working on your vocals and transitioning from a backing vocalist to possibly a lead vocalist. Is that kind of what you're hoping to do, or is that something you want to dip your feet into?
Not sure,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of the time they are always looking for somebody, and they'll need somebody for whatever, I guess, background they'll need.
Hmm.
Lead vocals, I do know some bass, and I only know one song on keyboard. I'm getting there. Um, and I only know one chord on guitar. Just let me cook, as the kids say. Um, Lead singing, I mean, if I'm going to be covering stuff on my own, I'm going to have to kind of pick up the slack where it's needed. Not
Hmm.
saying that nobody's willing to help, but
Right. Right.
it's just, if I'm doing stuff on my own, it's going to be me for a while.
Sure.
So if I am a lead vocalist somewhere down the road, cool.
Yeah.
If I'm not, that's cool too.
Sure.
If I'm a backing vocalist somewhere and I'm needed, I mean, I'll work with that as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be as versatile as possible. I try to be as useful as possible,
Yeah.
because in with the way things have progressed since we last gig, you need all kinds of people
You
that
do.
know how to do so many kinds of
You
things,
do. Yeah.
especially in sound tech.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people kind of, and I'm sure it's not that way for professional backing vocals. There are
Mm.
people that are pro backing vocalists and they know their stuff. Um, there's a lot of times you see people they only want to be lead, but I don't think people realize just how important a good backing vocalist is. You
Mm.
know, to be able to hit those high notes. They don't have to be strong high notes. They just have to be there.
It makes it fuller.
Yeah, or if for some reason somebody forgets their lyric, uh, and that backing vocalist can pick up the slack, just even momentarily. So that was always a joke of ours. Probably
Yeah,
about a
because
half
this
of the
this was the move.
yeah, after about a half a dozen times, she no longer gave me the lead in. She'd just sit there and smile and play and like, you gotta
Smile
figure
and
it
play,
out.
smile and play.
Hated her for it, but she knew what she was doing. She knew that that was really the right thing to do. So, but it's the inside joke between us,
Mm.
having made a lot of memories. That's one of them. So behind the kid, here is this, kid. And one of the things that we would always laugh about is the fact that we never knew exactly what you were going to look like coming out. When we'd get everything set up, sound check was going on, everybody was sound checking, and then it was her turn to sound check. And here she would come, and we never quite knew exactly what you were going to do with your look. Did you have a preconceived idea as to what you wanted to do, or did you say, oh, where am I at? This is where I'm at. I'm going to do it this way? Or how did you do that?
Winged it.
You just winged it?
I winged it because the more I overthink, the more it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to fix the overthinking part
Fix the
still.
overthinking part. Well,
But I usually just wing it and go with it.
yeah.
I like being flashy though.
Yeah. Yeah. I know being behind the kid, it's easy to be just absorbed, into the background. But that was definitely something that didn't happen to you
Mm.
pretty much right out of the gate. I mean, I think maybe the first year or so, being a young person, you took it in stride and all that, and then eventually it was just like boom, here's this little person back there, and next thing you know, she's got all this theatrical makeup on. But I don't think what people realize is how important strong makeup is on
Mm.
stage. I think there's a lot of people that could use some help in that department.
Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely. And especially in theater, and to use theater as a tangible here, when we saw Phantom of the Opera, I mean, I had some opera glasses with me so I could see a little bit better, but even then, like, their faces were more chiseled out and more exaggerated so that way you can see what kind of character you're looking at.
Hmm.
And especially for Phantom's character, when he removed the one half of his face, the mask that was covering the one half, uh and when you see what's behind that, and when I see the backstage footage of how they do it on Broadway or other places that they do it at, it looks kind of funky, like it looks a
Hmm.
little harsh
Yeah.
sometimes. But when you're on stage and when you're all the way in the back,
Right.
you're not going to know.
Yeah.
But you can see that character and you can see that he's disfigured, and
Hmm.
that's why he covers that.
Hmm.
Other another topic is most notably Kiss. They've always had very distinct makeup. You always
Hmm.
know who is who.
Yeah.
And even when you're sitting in the far back, you know who Gene Simmons is. You know who
Sure.
Paul Stanley is. You
Mm.
know who Peter Criss is. And Peter Criss, to me, he always looks like a cat. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the vibe that he went for to begin
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
everybody was so distinct then too. But even then, it's the playing.
Yeah.
Because there was a difference between Ace Frehley and Tommy Thayer.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
you would know who is who,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because you'll be standing next to somebody that you might be gigging with, for example, and you're standing there looking at them, and their makeup is really bizarre looking when you're standing next to them. But the minute they step on stage and the lights hit them, it makes
The
sense.
stage lights,
It totally makes sense.
the stage lights also make a huge difference too,
They do.
because they could wash you out completely, or they could, enhance you.
Right.
But they're also really hot too.
Yeah, they are.
So
They are.
when you're back there, you're playing the drums and you got all this makeup on you and you have these lights beating down on you. You're like, okay, makeup may be melting, but it could be cool. I don't know what I look like. I have,
Just wipe your face like this. Oh, it's even better.
it's even better.
I think the other cool part of it is that it wasn't until we were together as a band that actually my brother ran lights. He had been a stage lighting technician
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
decades prior to that. So it was kind of a cool coming around full circle, that I got to have
Mhm.
my brother, your uncle, running lights for us, and my sister-in-law running spotlight, who was probably the best spotlight engineer I'd ever seen,
Mhm.
technician I'd ever seen. She had timing like nobody else. And so that was pretty cool too. I always mention that sort of thing when I'm talking with people, because it's not very often that you get to play in a spot that's got, in-house lighting, full lighting, you
Mhm.
know, being operated. It might be on a computer, but this was actually being operated by a human being. So that was kind of cool to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is there anything that, sticks out to you, Ruby, as something that you want to share with people that are out there, maybe watching, young people, for example?
Oh gosh. I think
Hmm.
some of it just comes with experience.
Mm.
But another thing that I can say is take time to use your stage fright as fuel for when you go on
Mm.
stage, because that was something that I struggled with, because I don't want us to sound terrible,
Right.
but it's also show business. The show
Hmm.
must go on.
Right. Right.
So even if someone breaks a string on stage, which it has
Oh
happened,
yeah. Or a kick pedal needs to be switched
oh
out,
my
or
gosh, that's a story. You
or a
know,
lug falls out of your snare.
yeah, and then somehow it goes missing, even though it's like everything's right here. It could be right, like it could be right
It's like a
here.
little goblin came and said, "Oh, I'm taking this
I'm
with
taking
me."
that. Nah, like, you
Yeah.
have you have to use your stage fright as a way to fuel you, because that's what I do. I get jumpy. I get a little
Mm.
shaky when I go on stage, but I think that's just part of
I think that's
the job.
normal. And I
But
think
that's yeah.
I think that sometimes makes for a better performance. I maybe after a few songs, everybody's loosey goosey and ready to roll,
Mm,
and if you're well rehearsed, you're ready for anything.
mm,
I think especially if you're well rehearsed, anything can be thrown at you, and you'll nail it. You'll make it work. Let's put it that way.
mm,
You'll make it work. But that's a lot of experience that people don't get. I think sometimes when people are young and they have ambitions of playing in a band, they really don't realize the sweat equity that goes into it. And, you know, rehearsing 3, sometimes 4 nights a week for a few hours, that's a lot of time.
mm-hmm,
And then you go into the gig aspect of it. Okay, maybe you pull your rehearsal back a little bit,
mm-hmm,
but you're still consumed, with the music, with the work involved, of gigging. And
mm-hmm.
then let's not forget, the late nights coming home, snow, ice, you're starving, you're sweaty, you're tired.
Be prepared.
Yeah, yeah, you always do have to be
And
prepared.
I will say this as someone who has a medical condition. Kind of customize each show according to what's going on. See,
Hmm.
with my condition, I have to make sure that I'm cool. I
Hmm.
have to make sure that I have some kind of ventilation, or I have enough water, and I have maybe
Cool
like a
towels.
cooler with cool towels, like you
Hmm.
said. Because if I overheat, it's going to become a major problem.
Sure.
So I always wear usually more loose kind of clothing, very
Mm.
showy, just to help with the ventilation.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
do accordingly.
Yeah, it's always better to be ahead of the game than try to fix it once it happens, because,
Mm-hmm.
if you faint from heat, it's going to take you a while to come back from it before
Yes.
you can go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say thanks for taking the time to sit and talk with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, most of the folks out there have seen you grow up, and here you are, getting older by the day, being adult in
Love
every way.
aging.
Yeah.
It's so good
Mhm.
to see another wrinkle form on my face.
But you definitely are a person that, sticks out. And I'm sure that when the time is right, you're going to find the right group to get together with and,
Mm.
put something back in there. And I've always thought maybe it would be, something to see. I've heard you do voice impressions that are pretty impressive, and always thought that would be something to just to try that's different for you.
Yeah.
And, but either way, so long as you're being creative, so long as you're being, you, nobody's ever gonna not let you be you. That's for sure. So,
Absolutely.
and I think that's the most important thing to take from this is that what's you is way different for me. I
Mhm.
mean, and
Mhm.
I admire people that can, take themselves and stand them out like that. So, but
Mhm.
I want to thank you for hanging out with your old ma. And I mean, it's always fun. We have a lot of laughs. I mean, the two of us, people don't realize the two of us, a lot of times we have these inside jokes that hit simultaneously. And not only do they hit simultaneously, but we will laugh or talk in harmony, and we don't even try to do
No,
that,
we
which I think
don't.
is pretty
We
wild.
really don't.
I think
Sometimes I wonder if we like scare ourselves like
I think that it's
how
pretty interesting. I don't know if it's a mom daughter thing or if it's just because we've been around each other so much. It just we know where each other's timber falls and vocal ranges or whatever. But I always,
But I think another part of it is because we're so close,
yeah,
and I just usually generally like hanging out with you a lot
yeah,
more. You
yeah.
are not a regular
I'm not a
mom.
regular mom.
You're
I'm a
the cool
cool
mom.
mom. We just did.
It's on tape. Guys,
It's
clip
proof.
that.
Well, Lady Scalora, is there any place that somebody might be able to go and see your social pages, your social online?
So as of right now, I'm mostly active on my Instagram. It's all lowercase lady_Scalora on Instagram. I work full time, so I really can only post when I can
Hmm.
between, adulting and
Right.
taking care of stuff.
Right, right.
But I do hope to expand more on my page when I have a set schedule or if I have to change up some things in my life just to
Hmm.
make it more easier to do the things that I like to do, then
Sure,
obviously you'll see more of that.
sure.
But I am active in my stories on Instagram. I'll usually share something silly or I'll take a picture or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. I do have plans. It's
Hmm.
just right now it's a little stagnant.
I think that's cool though, is that you're not now, and I could be wrong here because I'm not as socially worldly as you are, but like, when I think of you, I think of you as a goth girl, but not a golfer. Like you're,
Alternative.
yeah, alternative, and you take it up a notch. You're not just trying to be goth. You're trying to send a message in whatever it is you're. I mean, I've seen some of your things on your Instagram page, and they're actually like socially responsible
Mm,
pieces that you've done on yourself, and I think that's pretty cool.
mm,
And there's not a whole lot of you that do those sorts of things, so
right.
you definitely stand out. And maybe I'm a mom, maybe I'm partial. I don't know, but I just know that you know go on to her page, follow her, and the more follows she gets, I'm sure the more she'll probably, put together. You usually have a theme. A lot of times there's a theme as to what's
Yeah.
going on, and some of
Yeah.
the props you use are pretty damn right scary. But
Mhm.
but they make you. So, but in the meantime, I'm hoping that we can make some noise down here, whether it's
Of
just you and
course.
me or, you, me and dad, it doesn't matter. Music never leaves you.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And I will always post if we're going some kind of jam night, go hang out with us at wherever we're going to be at. And I'll try to, post within fair time so that way people can prepare.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that way I'm not at the last minute like, "Oh, hey guys, I'm right here."
And for those of you in the Northeast Ohio area, specifically in the upper corner of Ohio, if you're looking for a drummer that's skilled, that is experienced and flexible with a lot of different ways of drumming and vocals, you may want to inquire about Lady Scalora because she's definitely somebody that can drop into pretty much any band. She's a very skilled drummer. So, but again, thank you for coming on. I love you.
Love you.
And we will see you guys at the next gig. Take
See
care
ya.
now. Bye. This is the F Bomb reminding you that you're never too old for rock and roll. So don't stop rocking, keep on rolling, and join me at the next gig here on Backline EQ.